I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Before Robert Downey Jr. said, "I am Iron Man," before Chris Evans picked up Captain America's shield, before Chris Hemsworth raised Mjolnir to the heavens as Thor, there was Howard the Duck. In 1986, Howard the Duck became the first Marvel Comics film adaptation since the 1944 version of Captain America, and the results nearly destroyed comic book movies for decades, and is often linked to George Lucas's sale of Pixar to cover the cost of the film's poor box office. But if you revisit Howard the Duck today, you will find it is a quirky, fun, and downright weird movie that is nowhere near the disaster many make it out to be. I'm Alex Maidy, and welcome to the Unpopular Opinion. In the annals of movie history, there are numerous films that are looked at as the worst. Some deserve the title, while others retain a cult following that enjoy the foibles and failures of the film in question. Some represent a point in time that can never be replicated and the death of a franchise before it even got started. And, in very rare cases, there are films that are every one of those things. Howard the Duck is one of those films. I love Howard the Duck.
Like they say, Dal, love's strange. We could always give it a try.
I will never shy away from how much I love this movie. I may be one of the half-dozen people on Earth who would ever admit such a thing, but there are some films that just click with an audience member, and Howard the Duck is one of those. Firstly, you have to take into account that when I first saw Howard the Duck, I was 9 years old. At that age, in the 1980s, a movie like Howard the Duck looked absolutely amazing. I saw a talking duck on screen, and I was sucked into this upside-down world of space aliens and alternate dimensions. The source material was lost on me at the time, but upon revisiting it and the movie years later, I still find the film to be a charming and unique time waster in the very best sense of the term. I can honestly say that Howard the Duck was a game changer for me in a lot of ways. Firstly, seeing Lea Thompson in her panties seducing Howard is very likely one of the most sexually confusing moments in cinema history. Yeah, I felt strange rumblings during the sequence, and yet I was completely disturbed that she was getting ready to bang an alien duck. Still, says something for the movie if you are sucked into the world on screen enough that you are willing to let go thanks to a massive dose of suspension of disbelief. The opening sequence on Howard's home world, Duck World, featuring him being sucked through space to Earth and featuring a female duck bathing with exposed breasts, yeah, this was also very confusing, but represents another moment where I couldn't be too bothered by the fact that a duck had massive boobs because, well, I was a kid looking at massive boobs. Either way, Howard the Duck was kind of a sexual awakening for my preteen self in ways I should probably discuss with a therapist. Even so, Howard the Duck presents a world where reality is just not in the cards. In 1986, seeing an adaptation like this of a surreal and satiric comic book was ahead of its time. Howard is a lot like fan-favorite Marvel character Deadpool, in that they are both smartasses who exist in a metaphysical universe, and yet, to be realized on screen to their fullest potential took a long time. In Howard's case, it hasn't happened yet. We got Rocket Raccoon come to life in James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy, and we were all excited to see it happen. Why should Howard the Duck be any different? Howard is an anthropomorphic talking duck who fights aliens and doesn't take crap from anyone. Howard was Rocket before Rocket was Rocket. Howard the Duck is also full of recognizable actors who sell this crazy film. The aforementioned Lea Thompson, an 80s movie mainstay, is great as Beverly. Tim Robbins is a goofy sidekick and nothing like the Oscar-caliber actor we would meet years later. And the iconic Jeffrey Jones portraying Dr. Walter Jennings and his evil alter ego, the Dark Overlord. The special effects and approach to filming Howard the Duck truly make it feel like a comic book come to life. It is in that mindset that I find it crazy that anyone could judge this film as anything more. It would be 3 years before Tim Burton would realize Batman and revolutionize comic book films in 1989, but Howard the Duck, like Star Wars, is steeped in its pulpy source material and does it proud. Directed by Willard Huyck, who served as a script doctor on the original Star Wars and co-wrote Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and American Graffiti, never helmed a movie again after Howard the Duck. He and his wife Gloria Katz decided to make the big screen Howard nicer and less obnoxious than in the comics to make the film more approachable for audiences. Despite these changes, Howard the Duck's creator Steve Gerber found the film was faithful to the character's comic book roots. And while critics ravaged the film, which also earned 4 Razzie Awards and only grossed $15 million on a $37 million budget, the careers of all involved suffered. But why? Howard the Duck can feel a bit incongruous, I will admit. The first half of the movie plays like a duck out of water tale. You see what I did there?
Cute.
As we see Howard trying to deal with being alone in an alien world. The comedy of errors he goes through feels like it jumped right from the comic book. If anything, maybe the lack of shock at those around this talking duck could have been played into a bit more. In this take, it almost seems like the 1980s were so crazy, no one would have batted an eye at a walking alien bird. The second half of the movie, especially the third act of the film, feels like a much darker and more adult tale. The special effects that literally emaciate and transform Jeffrey Jones's character to an evil shell of himself is quite disturbing. Sometimes, when I watch Howard the Duck, I feel like I'm watching two different films shoved together. If given more time, maybe those two films could have been separate, distinct adventures. In the 34 years since it was released, the cast and crew behind Howard the Duck continue to support the film. Lea Thompson and Jeffrey Jones both have fond memories of working on the movie, and George Lucas has been adamantly positive and thinks it will continue to be remembered fondly in hindsight. Lucas is right, as Howard the Duck is still a fun movie and one unlike anything else we have seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. While Universal owns the rights, we likely will never see an MCU solo film for Howard, but one can still hope. There is a unique and specific charm to Howard the Duck that may also play against it. A lot of people likely have heard bad things about the film and stayed away, while others might not have been willing to give up their reality for a couple of hours to experience a film this off the wall. Howard the Duck now, 3 decades later, is so steeped in the decade that it was made in that it is hard for viewers to look past the dated clothes and pop culture references to see the movie for what it is, a fun fantasy adventure with a smart-ass lead character. You know, kind of like every other Marvel movie. I may not be able to convert you into thinking that Howard the Duck is a great movie. In fact, I'll admit it right now, Howard the Duck is not a great movie, but it is a hell of a lot of fun and unlike anything else you will ever see. While Seth Green voiced the character in a brief cameo appearance in James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy and a non-speaking role in Avengers Endgame, the odds are the tone and approach to telling this character's origin may never see the big screen again. But the film we do have is imbued with the same element of childlike wonder that is inherent in every George Lucas production. Maybe Howard the Duck went off the rails a bit. Maybe it needed to be tightened up in the screenplay department. There are countless maybes you can pin on this film, but we cannot change what it is. Revisit Howard the Duck, and I am sure you will find a well-crafted visual film with high-quality effects and an unforgettable protagonist. But hey, that's just my unpopular opinion. Tell us yours in the comments below. I'm Alex Maidy with JoBlo.com.
Can't resist your intense animal magnetism.
Whoops.